With just days to go to the ANC conference in KwaZulu-Natal, businessman Sandile Zungu has held a briefing confirming that he will contest for the position of provincial chairperson of the ANC in KZN. He'll go up against the current chairperson, Sihle Zikalala, and Nomusa Dube-Ncube, who's also the finance MEC in the province. Let's speak to Sandile Zungu now about his campaign. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to Daytime Update. My goodness, what a difference 6 months makes. In February, you said you would not be contesting, but now you are. What's changed?
In February, after 2 months of consultations, I said I will not be contesting. But there was a caveat. I said if the branches so nominate me, I'll find it difficult to resist. And indeed, they've nominated me in droves. And I've said to them, I am standing. The task of rebuilding KwaZulu-Natal for the good of the ANC, for the good of the people of KwaZulu-Natal, and for the good of people of South Africa and the continent is absolutely critical. And people like myself have a duty, probably have no option but to enter the ring, because things have just crashed to the lowest. I don't know how lower they can descend.
But there was already conversation at the beginning of the year about you indeed running. So even when you said you'd wait for the branches, I wonder if you already had an indication that they would indeed, the branches, when they felt the time was right, openly support you.
The indication was there because, I used the 2 months to go to the length and breadth of the province to meet all the critical stakeholders in the politics of KwaZulu-Natal. People who have served as premiers in this province, people who have operated as MECs in the province, and who have led the province. And overwhelmingly, the view was, Sandile, we need you here, which was quite, heartwarming, as it were, but frightening was then I appreciated how deep the morass had set in and how heavy the task of rebuilding the ANC in the province is going to be. So I had an indication that there's an element of we want you. And indeed, when the branches nominated me, in their numbers, not just in eThekwini, but as far further as north of Umfolozi and south of Umkomazi River and around the bag. Literally, the whole of KwaZulu-Natal have had nominations.
There's also been reporting in the last few days, I think it was the IOL that reported that you also have the endorsement of former President Jacob Zuma. Is that true?
I won't talk for people who have not said so formally. I don't know where they take it from. It suffices to say that, yes, I've met the former president, as I have met him a couple of times in the past, and we spoke about my, being requested to serve. And I wanted to seek his opinion as much as I wanted to seek the opinion of the former Premier, Willis Mthunu, who is a highly respected political personality in this province.
And what were their opinions? Did they think that you got what it takes to change things around?
Their opinions was that, Sandile, we need you in this province. We think you can make a huge difference. Something which was quite flattering was you bring a lot of business gravitas. You bring a deep understanding about how wealth of nations is made. And at the same time, my credentials as a political activist and as a child of the ANC is unquestionable. I became associated with the ANC at the age of 14. Can remember very well, it was 1981 when Griffith Mkanye was killed in my township, and I saw my peers at school being orphans at such a young age, and it touched me. I got involved in the struggle, and I've never stopped.
So, you said you won't speak for people who've not endorsed you publicly, but if you've met with former President Zuma and Mr. Mthunu, and they both said to you, Sandile, we need you, that sounds to me like an endorsement, even if it was one done in private.
Of course, yes, it is.
let's talk about something else that you said at your briefing yesterday. You said that the ANC, there's a feeling among the people that the ANC is not as close as it should be to them. How would you bring it closer to the people, especially when you look at the trends from this previous election where in KZN, the ANC basically got the shock of its life when you look at how it performed in some of the areas?
People want love. They want love in small pockets. When there are floods, they want to see the ANC, not government. They want to see the ANC in their T-shirts, the very same T-shirts that they dished out to them when they were campaigning for elections. Then I want to see them in those T-shirts carrying their picks and shovels, digging out for possible corpses and rescuing those who are trapped in the flood-ravaged areas. The ANC has practically not been there. They've had to rely on government. Where is the canvassing and the mobilizing capacity of the ANC? The people of KwaZulu-Natal want to see love from the ANC when they are losing jobs. There are refineries, Sapref, Engen, which have been shut down and have had devastating effects in the communities nearby, whether it's Wentworth in the case of Engen, whether it's Isiping or in the case of Prospectins located Sapref. I could go on and talk about Moy River.
Right.
And they want to see the ANC being there, campaigning with them, having programs. They just want simple love. Oh, you are there with us. But and when you campaign for elections in 2024, we then see you as part of us.
Well, many of those people would say they've seen the ANC over the years. They love it or have loved it for decades, but at a time when many of them are seeing the quality of their lives not improving and in some cases getting worse economically and otherwise in terms of crime, etc., the era of seeing and feeling the ANC's love is over. What they want are actual jobs and a guarantee that once you're able to come in as chairperson, they will be able to then walk into a job, walk into safer communities.
That's a mammoth task for any one person. But I can assure you that with my decades of experience in business as an entrepreneur, starting businesses, building them up to significant substance, and understanding how wealth of nations gets created. I could start there in KwaZulu-Natal and have the influence, even shape the future direction of the policy, economic policy of the ANC. Also, it starts with small things. It starts with agro-processing in areas like Mzala in Zululand, where there's a lot of Ngonyama trust land sitting alongside privately owned land. And you can see the forestry in privately owned land is booming. In Ngonyama trust land is looking fallow. Someone has got to drive that process. If you are a leader of society, such as the ANC claims to be, then you've got to drive that kind of talking to each other, that kind of working together to ensure that no piece of land lies fallow, is put to good use for the benefit of people, especially young people who are unemployed in their millions. So my view is, as a chairman, if I'm tasked with that responsibility, if the confidence is bestowed on me by the rank and file of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, then I want to be confined to the office of the ANC and to ensure that we bring warmth and bring the ANC back to be close to the people and be able to shape the policies, economic in particular, that will have impact on the economy and employment and poverty and inequality levels.
The challenge, though, with you being a businessman and laying out all of these plans is that politics and governance are perhaps a bit more tricky to navigate compared to business, right? Because of the bureaucracy and the many other challenges. So you'd have to come in with the expectation realistically that it's going to be much easier said than done.
No, I run a team called Amazon Football Club. And I was told by many naysayers, you're not going to turn this team around. This team has been yo-yoing it back into the bush relegation and up into the senior status. And in 2 seasons, I took the team to compete in the CAF Champions League. It was number 2 in the local league. We're in the top 8 for 2 seasons in running. And we have signed great players. We're going to compete for the title. The excuse of bureaucracy, I want to underline the excuse is bureaucracy. It's simply that, bureaucracy. Right. If you are single-minded as a politician and having a business acumen, you're going to ramrod through bureaucracy as long as you deliver the results. And so there are obvious areas where there's got to be massive consultations. If you call that bureaucracy, then it's fine, because you have to have people to be taken along. But in most cases, politicians hide behind bureaucracy, where it's basically ineptness.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned AmaZulu, because I wanted to ask you about your business interests. So if you become chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal ANC, what will happen to your business interests? How will you manage that? Because it could pose a unique challenge where you're unable to be fully present in both roles.
I was chairman of Dinal, the arms manufacturer. I think that was during your teen years. I was already chairman at age 34. I was already an entrepreneur. And for 5 years, I did 0 business with Dinal. And you know what? Even during the cooling off period, I did 0 business with Dinal. And that cooling off period has been perpetual. I'm not the kind of person who will leverage on one's position to advance one's business. I'm an entrepreneur, and that talks for itself. So it will not be difficult for me to say, no, AmaZulu is a team. I've got people in my business. It's owned not by me in my personal capacity. It's owned by Zungu Investments Company. They can run that. And I've got businesses that are by and large not dependent on the state.
So your businesses will not do any business with the state at all?
I can assure you I'll use my absolute best endeavors to ensure that there is not a smell of stink under my armpits. That's why our campaign is called Fresh, because we smell.
So we also, Mr. Zungu, pardon me, I don't mean to cut you off, but we are a little pressed for time. We also live in an era, aren't we, where we've heard of people using the names of politicians and their relations to them in order to advance their own business interests. How are you going to guard against people who may be associates of yours then abusing those links in order to further their ambitions as far as business movements in KwaZulu-Natal, should you be chair?
I think it's hypothetical. It's hypothetical. In the past, it has not happened. I was chairman of Dinal for 5 years. Not a single person threw his weight around he was friends or business partners with the chairperson of Dinal. And that's a microcosm of how I manage my affairs vis-a-vis other public responsibilities. So I would like to believe that prepared me for my space that I'm possibly moving into the public space.
Let's talk about the step-aside resolution. You believe that it's been used at the moment in a rather divisive manner. The ANC believes it's a mechanism, of course, to deal with leaders who are facing serious charges, court process and the like. And you say, at the moment, you would like, if elected, for that to be reviewed. How would the ANC hold leaders accountable who face serious charges if this resolution in its current state is not workable for you?
The step-aside was designed under conditions where there was a need for some kind of accountability. But unfortunately, the way it is implemented in the ANC, it is seen to be a factional tool to browbeat those that are in the opposite faction. And unfortunately, in the hands of a different faction, it may be used similarly. And then it becomes counterproductive as an instrument to bring accountability. You remember the time when there were scorpions? Some people believe scorpions were very effective, but there was a groundswell of view that they were actually used selectively to prosecute some and not others. And it suffered a terrible fate of abrupt closure, to the detriment of South Africans, I must say. So we want to have to make sure that accountability remains, but the step aside as currently exists within the ANC must be looked at fundamentally. It's not serving the ANC well at all.
What should it be in order to function optimally?
We have to find accountability instruments within the ANC. I don't want to be the one who sets policy, but certainly KwaZulu-Natal, which would be led by myself as a chairperson, God willing, will be pushing very strongly for a review of the step-aside provisions.
Is the issue the policy or the way it's used?
It's a conflation of issues. It's a conflation of issues. The policy, the way it's applied, it ends up stinking everything.
And you mentioned factions. Do you claim a position in the ANC's factional dynamics? Are you pro-Ramaphosa, anti-Ramaphosa, pro-RET?
I'm neither faction A or faction B. I actually hate slates, to be very honest, because I've seen them being introduced. If you look at the slates pre-2007 conference, by the way, I was there in all the conferences of the ANC except the last one at Newzroom. The slates didn't exist before then. Of course, there was a bit of talking to comrades before the conference, and there was a matter of alignment. But in 2007, the slates began to set fruit, and they've never, left the ANC with great devastation to the fiber and the moral structure of the ANC. And as far as I'm concerned, it's something that every good comrade within the ANC must endeavor to do away with slate politics.
Sandile Zungu, businessman and hoping to be chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Good to have your time, so thank you for being on the program today.